Hello, welcome back to Shop Talk with Tim. Share with you one of these frustrations that I've had. Maybe you've had the same thing where something didn't go as planned. So you had a project in mind and it started to come apart and just literally not work the way you're intending. And in my case, this was a tabletop right here that I was intending to make for a game table for our family room. And as it turns out, I'm going to go through the steps of how this came to be and what it is now. So this ended up as a piece of wall art, and I'm happy with it now. And in a future episode, I'll show you what happened to that table. It actually turned out much better, and I'll go through that, how to make a card table. But for all the intents and purposes of this, everything changed. And I came to a halt. But let me go through the steps of how I got to this point here, starting from the very beginning. The background is a piece of 3/4 inch particle board. And I thought this would be a good, usually it's pretty stable and all that. And since I was going to be covering it, it's just the substrate for all the pieces of wood on there. What I did is I used a piece of material that I chose for the border. I wanted everything to be end grain. So the whole border is made out of a species of wood called English yew. When you cut it up into short lengths, like I did here, this is a piece of white oak, just using it as an example. I biscuit joined this together. And the biscuits, that's what a biscuit is. And we could talk about that in a future video, how that works. But that allowed me to put this frame together. It's flush with the back. And then I had a short piece. I could cut off the defect and add another piece on and glue it all the way around. So I got that. I got a whole frame. It looked like a big tray, all done with the edge work and the background. I painted this particle board flat black, and then I went to the urban forest. This is your backyard maybe, or someplace where you can get sticks of wood of all different sizes, and I cut it off on a chop saw. You got to be careful with this because you got irregularities and it's not straight, but you try to make sure that it's secured enough. Lop it off like salami, like you're cutting a piece of salami. So you're making pieces of wood that look about like that thick. This is, I think, in my case, is about 1 inch thick or so. And then my daughter helped me with this, and we arranged it like we're putting together a jigsaw puzzle. And I would start placing pieces, and if I had too much of a certain species on one side, I need different colors, and I wanted to get the lighter ones kind of more random, spaced out. And once I got that all done, I started gluing them down from just one line after another with a wood glue. And I don't remember exactly. It could have been like E6000 or just type on. I don't remember exactly. But the reason you got to glue them down is so that they don't float up and create a problem when you start putting the epoxy in. The next step is epoxy resin that you mix up, and I didn't mix up enough to begin with, but I wasn't too worried about it. I could just flow more in later, and I would start to flow this in, and then the problem happened. I didn't realize this at first. It was going all very well, and then all of a sudden, when it started to cure, it pulled up the sides, both directions. So it kind of warped it. My border still stayed tight because it was all biscuit jointed together. Everything was fine, nothing cracked, but it was cupped. So now if I filled in epoxy with the rest of it, the high sides wouldn't have any, and it'd be full here, and it would flow off, and it would just be a disaster. So now what? My whole tabletop thing was no good. And it was getting heavy. It was getting really heavy because of the epoxy resin and everything on it. So now it's just like this whole, and I couldn't pull it flat either. So now what do? And then set it aside for a while and came up with an idea. We had a space in our basement right here. I got a table made out of some of the same wood that sits in front of this. And I thought, we'll make wall art. And so I finished it up, and as it turns out, it wasn't warped so bad that you can tell it's a little higher in some spots than other places, but I didn't fill the epoxy up to the top. So all the end grain was all epoxy down, but there was kind of high and low, because when you're chopping wood like this, you might not get a perfectly straight cut like that, where it's even all the way around. So then the next thing I got to do, and this took a lot of work, but it worked out fairly well. If you just take your time, I ended up using a Festool Rotex, the biggest one they have. It's a 6-inch. And this is what I use to grind it down. Now, this has an integrated vacuum hose, which is really great. Sucks all the dust out. You don't want to be breathing epoxy dust. And this can be on a slower, more aggressive setting, and you can use some of the abrasives I start with is like a 36 grit, which is like rocks, and it just grinds it down, and you step sand it all the way up to about I think 180 grit is what I stopped at, and you just change them easily. Once I sanded this down and got all the highs and lows pretty equal with the border, then I varnished on top of it. It's glossy in here because that's the way the resin is, but the rest of it's kind of a matte or a satin finish. And it's because it's so heavy, I don't think I weighed it. It might be 100 pounds. It's anchored to the wall with a couple of lag bolts into studs, so they're about 3/8 of an inch thick. And it ended up as a fun piece. I've displayed it where I work for a while. Anything that you build and things go bad, hang on to it for a little while. And sometimes you can come up with another idea of something you didn't intend. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your interest in what I have here. If you like it, give a thumbs up or subscribe, and we'll see you next time.